Mayor of the Inner West Council, I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and by paying respect to their elders, both past and present. We have a full house here tonight, so there's no apologies from councillors or requests for remote attendance. For the benefit of the citizens here tonight to contribute from the public gallery, we let you know at the beginning of the meeting that these proceedings are broadcast live onto YouTube. That's a requirement of the Local Government Act that they are broadcast and they're recorded for posterity. So there are legal ramifications for the comments that you might make in the public domain. Now going to read to you the statement of ethical obligations, which I'm only going to say this once, but I believe this contains the longest sentence in the history of the English language, the first paragraph. The Mayor and Councillors are bound by the oath or affirmation of office made at the start of the council term to undertake their civic duties in the best interests of the people of the Inner West Council and to faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in them under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of their skill and judgment. It is also a requirement that the Mayor and Councillors disclose conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors, are there any disclosures for tonight's meeting? Councillor Atkins.
Yes, I need to disclose a pecuniary significant interest in agenda item 9, the flood management report, because my home, which I own, is in the Whites Creek and Johnston Creek catchment area.
Thank you for that. Have you provided that declaration to the
I have, and I will leave the chamber.
Thank you for that. Any further disclosures? The Deputy Mayor.
I declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 8, Local Traffic Committee, as I work in the Ministerial Office for the Minister for Transport, who in her capacity as the member for Summer Hill has a representative on the Local Traffic Committee. I will remain in the meeting during discussion and voting as the vote of the state member is exercised through a representative. I declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 17, Tempe train station, as I work in the Office of the Minister for Transport. In that capacity, I've been directly engaged around work around station upgrades, so out of an abundance of caution and to avoid any perception of risk or risk of conflict, I'll remove myself from discussion and voting on the item.
Thanks for that. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 8, the Local Traffic Committee report. One of the items to be approved in the Traffic Committee report is pedestrian upgrades at Sydney Secondary College Leichhardt, where I am the PNC President and one of my children attends. I will leave the meeting during the discussion and voting. I also declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 20, Rozelle Village, as I am Council's appointee to the Sydney Eastern Planning Panel that will determine the outcome of this project. I will leave the meeting during the discussion and voting.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further disclosures? If not, will someone move their acceptance? Moved by Councillor D'Arienzo, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Can I ask everyone to please join me in a moment of quiet contemplation? Thank you. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 3rd of September and the meeting of the 8th of October, the mayoral election. Are there any clarifications or corrections to those minutes? If not, will someone move their adoption?
Moved.
Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to the public forum. I'm going to read out the list of items for which we have speakers who've registered through the council website to speak tonight. So I'd like you to listen to the list. If you've come to register for an item and that's not read out now, there's something that's gone wrong with your registration and you need to come forward and let us know. So we have item 7, impact of Totties on surrounding residential community in Rozelle. Item 8, local traffic committee, the meeting of the 16th of September. Item 18, post-exhibition planning principles for the Inner West. Item 19, faith-based housing roundtable. Item 23, notice of motion regarding motions for the Local Government New South Wales Conference. Item 24, notice of motion Inner West Labor policy platform. Item 27, notice of motion a fast and smooth development process. And item 41, notice of motion social enterprise cafe at Together 2 for disability employment. And then in addition to that, I've been informed that there are 2 speakers who have come tonight. One who was seeking to register to speak to item 44, which is in regards to the lease of the Ashfield Bowling Club. Is there anyone else here tonight whose item was not just listed? If not, we'll begin at the start. So the first speaker tonight is for item 7, impact of Totties on surrounding residential community, and that is Maria Palmer of Rozelle, who is here with us. Maria, are you here? Maria, I'll just let you know, and via you, all the other speakers, under the code of meeting practice, you're entitled to speak for 3 minutes. After 2.5 minutes, you'll hear this bell, and that's just an indication that it's time to work up to your crescendo. We are not in the practice of extending time beyond 3 minutes because you're the first person here tonight. You'll think it's very important to get your view across, but if you're the last staff member who has to leave after midnight, you wish that everybody else had stuck to time. Maria?
Hi, my name is Maria Palmer. I live opposite Totti's in Rozelle. Thank you, first off, for listening to the local residents and their concerns with Totti's. I'm here to speak against the motion because I feel it's not doing enough with regards to the control of noise from patrons leaving the premises, and also security around the premises and antisocial behaviours around the premises. The meeting notes that I read talk about a management plan being formulated by Totti's, talks about how they have briefed their security staff and retrained them, put them on for additional hours. This is all noted, but unfortunately it's ineffective if the staff aren't engaging with the patrons who are behaving in an antisocial way. On Friday night, I observed patrons sitting on the steps of the bar. I can't say for certain, but they appeared to be smoking or vaping. They sat there for 20 minutes laughing, making noise, and at no time did the security guard approach them, even though he was nearby. They then went back into the premises. Later on that night, more patrons left. They were making so much noise that I heard them from the back of my house. I went out to see what was going on. They were jumping around on the street, play acting, ran into the traffic. Again, at no time did the security guard engage with them. In fact, my husband walked over and spoke to him because the situation was so dangerous. So Totti's may say that they're improving their practices, but there's no evidence of this. And I ask that you consider what more can be done to make this more effective. Thank you.
Very well made points and very succinct. That's a model for everybody else tonight, including all the new councillors. The second item is item 8, local traffic committee meeting, and the one speaker is Elvina Weissel of Lilyfield, who is here.
Hello. I'm Elvina. I've very happily lived in the Boulevard, Lilyfield, for 34 years. I'm here to discuss the acceptance that the Traffic Committee has approved in terms of our central median islands with trees down the middle of our beautiful boulevard. I'd like to start by reminding you that boulevard simply means wide, lovely street. And I have discussed with my neighbours that the joy of living in the boulevard is that it's one of the rare wide streets in this huge Inner West Council. So my neighbours and I have been very happily living on this particular street. The concerns are threefold. One is that I was initially told by the council that there was concern that these islands would provide traffic calming. I live at the boulevard, so that's quite close to Balmain Road. I'm not particularly aware of frequent issues with hoons driving down the boulevard. Then the change, the council staff told me it was actually increasing the tree canopy, which is great. We do have lovely trees down either side of the boulevard. And I guess what I wanted to highlight was the council's inconsistency, because the council is allowing many houses being built all around Lilyfield, particularly in the boulevard, and none of these huge new constructions actually have any trees on their property. So I fully understand the need for us to increase our tree canopy, but I want to highlight the inconsistency that all of these developments pretty much do not have any trees at all in these new developments. And then I looked at the traffic report, and the suggested costings is $800,000, which is an awful lot for an unnecessary development in the boulevard. I'm an occupational therapist. I have worked for over 40 years, very, very proudly working for the safety of our community, particularly falls prevention, and I feel the money could be much better spent, $800,000, on improvement of our paths, the lanes throughout our area, and really focusing on community safety rather than unnecessary, ridiculous beautification. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Elvina. The next item for which there are speakers is item 18, post-exhibition of planning principles for the Inner West. And the first speaker is Anne King of Lilyfield, the trifecta of Balmain ward speakers so far to start the night. Often the best speakers in my experience. Anne, are you there? Are you here? No? Okay. Philip Issa of Marrickville, online. Philip, are you there? No? Okay. Barbara McKellar of Dulwich Hill. Thanks, Barbara.
Maybe, I don't know what the others were going to say though, of course. Principles of Planning document. Thank you very much for the document. I'd just like to point out a few things, please. I note that there were 118,700 letterbox drops, and of those there were 1,221 responses. That works out to be about 1.03% of people responded to the document. Tragic, I would have thought. The reason I say that is I live in a beautiful street that's probably going to be decimated by this proposed planning, and most of my neighbours knew nothing about this survey. Why? They're from a non-English speaking background. Second reason, they don't go onto computers and do surveys, do anything. So thankfully, a nice young man from the council, and I'd like to give credit to Matthew Lloyd, an engagement officer with council, was very kind and offered to print these out for me. I marched around my streets and got people to fill in the questionnaire, and we mailed them in. I would just like to point out to council that this is not a very effective way of surveying and finding out what's going on. Not everybody is computer literate. Not everybody has English as their first language. And if you truly want input, you need to think beyond that. So I would urge council to do that in future. It also makes me wonder how many other streets in my neighbourhood suffered the same issue. I can name at least 4 other streets in my neighbourhood that have the same issue. So please, council, this is a vital issue, as you know. Vital for those of us who've lived there for a long time and who are terrified about what's going to happen, and also vital that you get full input from a whole range of your residents. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much for that, Barbara. The next item is item 19, Faith-Based Housing Roundtable, and the first speaker is the former Minister for Planning and many other portfolios, Rob Stokes, representing Faith Housing Australia.
G'day Mayor, g'day councillors, g'day everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this item. I commend it to council for your noting, and I note the wonderful work of council staff, including Simone Plummer, who worked so assiduously with representatives of local churches and other faith groups to both identify land holdings that are places of worship or other faith-held lands, and ways in which this land could be more effectively repurposed to meet the missional need of faith-based organisations to serve people who find themselves in situations of vulnerability. Not that the people are vulnerable, but rather the situations they find themselves in, and remembering that any of us could find ourselves in these situations. Basically using the land assets of religious bodies in the inner west to meet the needs of the broader community. There's a win-win-win for everyone. A win for other parts of the community is that these areas often which are no longer effectively used as places of worship because the demographics of churches mean that our congregations meet elsewhere, but a win for social and affordable housing in well-located areas. And it's also a win in terms of re-energising and these sites, many of which contain heritage items, to adaptively reuse this heritage to meet a broad social need. So we really commend the work of council. I wanted to also acknowledge the work of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor who have worked so hard across party lines, I hasten to add, and I'm not involved in that anymore, but just to say that this is an area that hopefully all councillors can come together to work with churches to identify ways to use faith-owned land to meet broader social objectives and the missional objectives of churches and other religious groups. Ultimately, the greatest commandment is to love our neighbour, and what a better way to do that than to use our land to meet the needs of people who require access to social and affordable housing. So I want to thank particularly council staff. You have some incredibly talented planners, strategic planners in your staff, and they've worked so well with us to identify through the LEP review opportunities to repurpose these lands or to allow these lands or incentivise these lands to be used for social and affordable housing. I wanted to commend the minute to you and thank particularly Mayor Darcy Byrne for his advocacy and for seeing practical ways that we can actually address what is the real housing crisis. To editorialise for a moment, the housing crisis is not so much a market crisis for more 2-bedroom units. In fact, the price of 2-bedroom market-based units has fallen over the past few years. But where there is a real housing crisis is in access to social and affordable housing for key workers, but also for people who are unable to work for a whole variety of reasons. And these people are a really important element of all our communities, also in the inner west. And so I've taken my 3 minutes and I commend this minute to you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks very much, Rob. And he did go a little bit over time, but I wasn't going to cut him off when he was saying all of that. And just on a completely unrelated note, I just do want to thank you, Rob, on behalf of the Inner West community for the advocacy that you undertook to save White Bay Power Station. It's It's on the way to becoming one of the best arts and cultural venues in Australia, and you're personally invited to the next rave there.
Thanks, mate. I'll see you there. I'll see if Dom Perrottet comes, but I think he wanted to see it knocked over, but so we won't invite him. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Amanda Bailey, also from Faith Housing Australia.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. We believe in this initiative so much that you not only had Rob virtually, but me here in person. Faith Housing Australia's members, we have 67 of them, community housing providers, specialist homelessness services, professional organisations supporting the delivery of housing, and faith communities. We come from lots of different faith traditions, Muslim, Christian, Jewish. It's a great community where everybody who doesn't necessarily agree with everything agrees on housing. And across, we really appreciated the opportunity to actually sit down around the table with your fantastic strategic planning teams. It's probably one of the only opportunities that the people who are trying to support the development of housing actually get to sit across the table from your planners. And what we took away was that there's such a willingness within council to take a collaborative approach. And so we really want to commend both Simone and Daniel as they lead that team for their fantastic work. So what's the type of scale that these incentives could actually help to deliver? You're probably aware of Fresh Hope Communities project Nightingale Marrickville, which is on Illawarra Road. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it, we'd love to create that opportunity for you, because 53 new high quality affordable homes are giving local people the opportunity for much greater agency in their life, much greater freedom and security. And so our members have identified another around 50 sites within the council area that have either disused or underutilised land that could potentially be used to deliver social and affordable housing. So that's 50 new opportunities like the one on Illawarra Road to give people who are inner west residents who are on lower incomes greater security to live in this great area. So we really encourage council to look very seriously at the incentives that are being proposed by your strategic planning team as suggested by our members. And Faith Housing Australia is really looking forward to partnering with you to achieve your goal of delivering 1,000 new social and affordable homes. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Amanda. The next item is item 23, Motions for Local Government New South Wales Conference, and the first speaker is Anthony Restifo of Ashfield, who is in person.
Excuse me, Mayor Byrne, is it possible, I'm just late to the last item, is it possible for me to move?
Not before, but we'll come back to you.
Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Anthony Restifo, pronouns they, them, and I'm an Ashfield resident. I'm also a senior disability support worker for a day program service for people with intellectual disability, and as a non-binary pansexual person, I'm part of the queer community. I'm here to talk about something I'm really passionate about, which is accessibility and keeping our safe spaces safe for vulnerable communities. When I was a child and teenager, I faced a lot of bullying, harassment, amongst trauma in my home that no young person should go through. There were few places that I could rely on to be safe, away from the teasing, bullying, and stuff that would later take more hours of therapy than I'd like to admit to process. The local library was one of these consistent safe spaces for me, as many other LGBTQIA+ youth. Libraries play a crucial role in supporting vulnerable populations, not only as educational resources, but also vital community support that can significantly improve quality of life. For vulnerable individuals such as low-income families, immigrants, the elderly and marginalised groups, like the wider queer community, libraries serve as more than informational hubs. They provide safe, inclusional spaces and essential services that foster social inclusion, mental well-being and personal growth. Below are some key benefits libraries offer to vulnerable communities as supported by recent Australian studies. Libraries are essential places for access to information. As foundational public institutions, libraries help bridge the digital divide. Vulnerable populations often lack access to digital tools like computers and the internet. Libraries provide these free access to these resources, enabling people to apply for jobs, access to government services and stay informed. In addition, libraries often partner with educational institutions to provide low SES students by offering them study spaces and technology. Access to technology. In this, libraries offer opportunities to develop and sustain lifelong learning. These varied programs and services improve social and economic outcomes and enhance overall community well-being. The mental health and general well-being libraries foster can't be understated. A 2023 study by Australia Reads found that libraries significantly enhance health and well-being by promoting safe, comfortable environments. Results indicated libraries positively impact mental health. Engagement with public libraries improves general health and well-being. Libraries also foster a sense of community, with almost half of users feeling more connected to the wider community through their use of library services, which cannot be understated as massive in terms of public betterment from a public service. Libraries also address social isolation and combat loneliness, a key issue that many are feeling in the hectic pace of our separated nature of our modern world. The aforementioned internet access and library programs are crucial for fostering social connections. Libraries are vital in maintaining social ties for vulnerable populations. Many in the queer community experience some form of homelessness from discrimination, with young people particularly vulnerable in homelessness populations. In these struggles, libraries serve as safe spaces offering technology and social service. Please vote to keep these spaces safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. That was wonderful. Really appreciate that. Our next speaker on this item is Jean Casey.
Hi, sorry, I hope you can hear me. My name is Jean. I haven't much of a speech prepared. I just wanted to talk to specifically the queer angle of this issue. If you're out of the loop, this focus on libraries and the arts comes in the context of a continuing campaign that the far right has pushed through council, well, previously through intimidation of local councils and now within councils to push queer people out of public life and council facilities and back into the closet. This is a point that is quite severe. We've seen it pass. We've seen bans on drag story time passed in Hillshire Council, and then that was advanced by Jeremy Cox, and then it was later pushed and successfully banned in Cumberland Council by Councillor Steve Christo. It is certainly true that the far right has used this as a wedging point because they do not see that people respect drag as an art form, and now that they have made this advance, they have moved on to the banning of books, as we saw in Cumberland Council, which is fortunately not a method of censorship that has carried successfully in Inner West. We should all be glad of that. But I hope that it is clear that this campaign against queer people and against council facilities is actually something that is quite vital to address and confront on a larger basis than individual councils. Sorry, I don't have much of a speech involved. Yeah, I would also just like to say that it is certainly true that the victories that have been experienced by bigoted groups that have supported Steve Christo and other councillors shamefully, they most directly impact queer people, trans people, but they also undermine the value of local councils in providing important resources to the community. That's not just information in the forms of books, it's also in supporting local artists, and that is specifically queer artists, but it is artists that they are. It is queer workers that are being pushed out of public life and kept out of these spaces. I would also just like to acknowledge that this is not a campaign that this far-right campaign needs to be addressed and taken quite seriously. I think that it's important to recognise that this is something that is big, that this is a campaign strategy that began this year in local council as far as I can see. However, in the last year previously, we've seen similar campaigns as attempted by far-right groups, in fact neo-Nazi groups across New South Wales and other states in intimidating local councils to shut down story time events similar to what is happening now, in which local councillors have moved to ban such things through the council. I don't have much more to say. I don't have a speech, but I hope that I've made clear that it's quite valuable to ensure that these censorship measures are not pushed any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And you'll be happy to know that our council has made a number of statements in support of increasing access and not creating barriers to all people accessing our public libraries. So thank you for your contribution. Can I just confirm that the resident who came in a little late is Anne King? And you're speaking on item 18, the planning principles of the Inner West? Okay, would you like to speak now? Yes, thank you.
Apologies for being late. I didn't think item 18 would be in the first 15 minutes. I am acutely aware of the context in which this survey consult has been done on planning principles, both the 35-year-old housing crisis and the MIN's upzoning edicts that, thanks to the advocacy of our mayor, we have managed to pause in the Inner West whilst we advance our own proposal to meet increased targets to address this crisis. Yes, even back in the 90s, when I as a social worker in my early career worked with homelessness and vulnerable housing issues, including producing a homelessness report for ACOS, we were already seeing then the fallout from the 1980s decline in public housing investment, combined with the unchecked rise of the profit-driven professional portfolio investment industry, with its active encouragement of negative gearing and tax breaks, not just to the Ma and Pa one, but on multiple properties, and then managing to spin it that they are doing renters a favour for existing by having the renter pay off the investor's 7th mortgage. I am acutely aware that even if we think the most guaranteed affordability solutions would and should come from federal reversal of these trends, we also have to, at our level, come up with a contribution, and now, before deadline. So perhaps this rush is why this survey is as it is. By that I mean its methodology is so flawed, its results can at best be of qualified value in guiding council forward to that contribution. Best practice survey design requires a Leichhardt scale where the positives and negatives are balanced, a 5-point scale with 2 positive, 2 negative and 1 neutral, optional 6. Strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, somewhat disagree, strongly disagree. But this survey scale offers a total 4 positive agree categories with only 1 negative and no neutral. This pushes respondents towards a positive response, as there are 4 times as many options, plus the top 2 categories are virtually identical and would normally be distinct alternative structures for the top Leichhardt question on a professionally designed survey. This skewing has been compounded by the office's interpretation of the already flawed results by aggregating the top 3 positive responses as support, with just the single oppose as counterpoint. Again, professional researchers would only group the top 2. What this means in the end is that the support, as described by the officer, is overstated. What's more, this survey's first iteration in its early weeks forced respondents to agree with certain upzoning propositions before they could even proceed with the survey, further skewing the results. Also to be noted is a sample size less than 1% in self-selecting status, which risks skewing results and would not be considered representative in professional surveys. But isn't this the same as all your, say, consults, you might say? After all, council can't spend 20k on every proper professional randomised study. True. But there is a big difference between do you want the swing or the slide in a playground upgrade versus possibly the most important engagement of the decade with respect to the preservation or transformation of our communities and the support networks for all age groups in them. The swing can easily be changed if it's wrong. At best, what we can say about this flawed methodology study that can help us going forward is that if we use only the top 2 categories as a professional survey would, majority support for various items amongst them is there. I request 20 more seconds or 10 more seconds, please.
10 seconds, thank you.
That includes place-based planning, heritage, the conversion of faith-based lands to public housing initiatives. I hope we are able to arrange the next round of investigations differently and whilst offering a plan to the state government now to contribute to the crisis solutions and avoid men's circles so insensitive to place and the connected communities within them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Our next item is item 24, the Notice of Motion Inner West Labor Policy Platform. We have Daniel Haig from Drummoyne, who is online.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening, councillors. My name is Daniel Haig. I am one of 2 new spokespeople for the Canal Park Dog Lovers Group. Tonight, on behalf of our 2,000 members, I wish to voice our strong ongoing objections to the proposed synthetic turf pitches in Canal Park, particularly to the Labour Council's new policy platform. We've recently reviewed the engagement outcome report for Eastern Park and Rozelle Parklands. Unfortunately, we found this report to be biased, subtly steering the community towards supporting synthetic turf in Canal Park by not offering a clear no synthetic turf option. Additionally, while email submissions were permitted as an option, none of the 203 emails submitted were included in the final report, further skewing the results. We believe this omission needs to be addressed fully, rectified, and updated because 66% rejected synthetic turf completely. Importantly, though, of the 505 online submissions received, only 33 voted for Waterfront Drive and just 11 for Balmain Road. In short, the outcome of the consultation cannot be said to truly demonstrate community support for either location of synthetic turf fields as reported. Other councils are currently rejecting synthetic turf in favour of well-maintained natural grass fields, the latest being Bob Campbell Oval in Lane Cove. There is clearly a significant lack of information on the full impact of this proposal, preventing the community from making an informed decision. No reports or assessments have been provided on the environmental or pollution impacts of the fields and its related infrastructure. So we ask, will Council provide a fully transparent review of environmental factors and full costings so the community understands the real impact of these pitches? Will you honour the Canal Park Act of 2002 by preserving the existing green, shared, open spaces? Will you protect the heritage significance of Canal Park, including its gardens and landscape features? Will you uphold the Companion Animal Management Plan of June 2022? In closing, I wish to remind you of Council's own words whilst we await a decision from the GSP, the current landowner, and their future plan of management. Canal Park is the 3rd largest open green space in inner Sydney, following Centennial Park and the Royal Botanic Gardens. It is listed on the State Heritage Register for its exceptional landscape and its rich cultural heritage, including its waterfront spaces, gardens, natural bushland, wildlife habitats, some of the last remaining in Sydney's inner west. Council's own Parks Planning Ecology Manager has acknowledged that the current plan of management for Canal Park does not adequately reflect the site's biodiversity. The Inner West Council's draft biodiversity strategy aims to create an ecologically sustainable Inner West and states the commitment to lead by example. The strategy emphasises the need to conserve and improve existing habitats whilst reducing the ecological impact of new development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Haig. Our next speaker on this item is Hall Greenland from Leichhardt.
Good evening, councillors. Hall Greenland, Friends of Canal Park. I'm familiar, I think, with the thinking behind this notice of motion. Labor has won the elections, and therefore the platform on which they stood should become the policy and priorities of council. The flaw in this thinking, however, is that Labor did not receive a majority of 50% plus 1, and therefore cannot claim that a majority of voters opted for their election platform. On the basis of election votes, it is by no means certain that a majority of voters endorse the Labor program. I know there's a preferential voting system, and with preferences, Labor could claim a majority, but a closer look at the results shows that the Labor majority depends on Greens' preferences. Labor won the second seat in Ashfield because Greens voters preferred Labor's number 2 to the Liberals' number 1. Fair enough, but I'm bloody certain that none of these Green voters did endorse the policies such as 2 plastic grass fields at Canal Park. Whether plastic grass has broad community support is yet to be proven. The only way this can be done is to ensure the maximum amount of public participation and consultation prior to any attempt to install this blight on the landscape. Where the plastic grass, there are at least 3 unanswerable objections to the installation of plastic grass. First, it is pollution. These fields give off hundreds of kilograms of microplastics every year. 2, it runs counter to climate change. Grass is a carbon sink. These things are heat sinks. And besides, they're a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry, which is the principal driver of disastrous climate change. And 3, speaking specifically about Callan Park, it is a unique special heritage site we've inherited from the 19th century. As I've said before, 21st century blights on the landscape have no place in such a landscape as Callan Park. It's not a greenfield site. Sure, we will have to try to increase the capacity of our playing fields, but that requires major investment in the design and maintenance of natural turf, not a betrayal of this community's commitment to reduce pollution, fight climate change, and protect our heritage. I know there are citizens whose view is to sweep these considerations aside in favour of more playing time, but it is yet to be shown that they are the majority. As for the survey on the Rozelle interchange fields has already been pointed out, the plastic grass question on that survey was a bodgy one, and besides, email responses were not tallied. If we are going to be democratic, there can be no imposition of any of these minority policies, certainly not plastic grass at Callan Park, without the maximum amount of public examination, consultation and participation. So thank you.
Thank you, Hall. Cynthia Nadai.
Good evening, everybody. I'm commenting specifically on the policy under the Capital Works that calls for delivering much-needed upgrades to all-weather sports fields at Callan Park and under the same heading, all-weather surface in Centenary Park. Now that the election is over, can Council, particularly the Labour councillors, stop and consider the environmental, health and social costs of installing and using synthetic turf or plastic grass? Let's focus on the science. I'm going to quote from the article from The Guardian, which was in March of this year. Athletes who play on artificial turf are likely to be coated with higher levels of toxic PFAS forever chemicals than before playing on the field. New research suggests raising more questions about the controversial material's safety. All artificial turf is made with what public health advocates say is dangerous levels of PFAS. When the highly mobile chemicals break off from the plastic grass blades, they can be absorbed through the skin, inhaled, ingested, or get in open wounds. I repeat, all artificial turf is made up with what public health advocates say is dangerous levels of PFAS. It's not only the infill, but it's the blades. The blades are plastic blades. Artificial turf is made with several layers, including plastic grass blades, plastic backing that holds the blades in place, and infill that weighs down the turf to help this blade stand upright. Industry has said the grass blades and backing cannot be made without PFAS. PFAS are a class of about 15,000 chemicals often used to make products resist water, stain, and heat. The compounds are linked to cancer, liver problems, thyroid issues, birth defects, kidney disease, decreased immunity, and other serious health problems. Please take this into consideration. Councillors, you have a duty of care to the residents and the environment. Every day we're reading more and more about the potential hazards of PFAS. Even this week, there are numerous articles and opinion in the Sydney Morning Herald which highlights the dangers of PFAS. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Cynthia. The next speaker is Paul Power of Rozelle.
Hello, welcome to the new council, everybody. This is a significant state heritage listed park There's no place for plastic grass in this park. The toxicity is still a huge issue. The plastic grass contains PFAS, as mentioned before, which are at present being discussed in all media, including ABC, the Sydney Morning Herald. There is a dangerous level of PFAS in our drinking water, and you're proposing to install a plastic field beside our Sydney Harbour. Do you want to add more pollution to the harbour? The chemicals used to maintain the plastic are also toxic. The Mayor talks about the rollout of charging stations for EVs. I assume it's for climate change. Plastic grass is a petrochemical product. The proposed plastic field will create an exclusivity that will be fenced off, so no dog walking, no passive walking, no cricket, no picnics, denying close foreshore access to enjoy the water views. It will be exclusive only to soccer, to the BDFC. It's been said that only 3% of Callan Park, now not when weekend soccer is on. Soccer patrons park everywhere and anywhere, including on the heritage grass landscapes, gouge holes in the turf, on the curbs, across the scenic waterfront, and also along the narrow roads at the northern end of Callan Park. Currently, Glover Street, Field and Waterfront Oval, plus the Bay Run, dominate 3/4 of the precious close waterfront in Callan Park. And now a toxic plastic field into this mix is an insult in the extreme. Let's talk about numbers. The Matildas effect was will not last. Will not last. The World Cup was held in Australia, and we have a good brace of fine women players at the moment. This will change. Like the men, we had a good brace with Mark Viduka, Harry Cool, Tim Cale, Mark Swartza, etc. Things change, times change. The stats tell us actually the numbers of children under 12 in the inner west dropped in the last 5 years. Housing too expensive, people having less children and having children later in life. The drop off of BDFC membership at age 12 is about 40%. They go to private schools and do other things. We were told by Mosman Council their natural field cost 7.8 million and the cost of plastic...
Sorry, Paul, your time has expired.
I thought you just gave me 30 minutes.
Oh, sorry, I sought the advice of the officers. I said, is that 2.5 minutes or 3? And I was told to cut you off, but please proceed.
Thank you. I have one paragraph to go. We were told by Mosman Council that the natural field was 7.8 million and the cost of plastic fields were 7.2 million. They went with natural. Paul Avery told us just at the last council meeting, the middle harbour oval could only be used 68%, I think, of the season. If we had a 30 degree...
You can wind up, please, Paul. That is 3 minutes.
30 degrees of, you can't play on plastic. If we have a downpour, you can't play in plastic. So the difference in...
Paul, your time has expired.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Why not have a soccer pitch in the greenways?
Okay, thanks, Paul. I just want to say for the record that I hope that your ambition for fewer women and girls doesn't come to fruition. And don't talk the Matildas down either, I reckon. Okay, we'll move on to item 27, a fast and smooth development process. The first speaker is David Reynolds of Summer Hill.
G'day, thanks for the opportunity to address the new council and congratulations on the election. I'm a local resident and ratepayer. My partner and I have bought an apartment in my local government area. There's only one part of this motion that I wanted to speak to, which was the point F. One of your staff members kindly circulated some documents to you earlier today in relation to this matter. So just by way of a bit of background, I'm a statutory planner. I've worked in development assessment for about 16 years. I started out my career at Leichhardt Council many years ago. So I've got a little bit of knowledge about these matters. So just firstly, one of the things I guess I'd point out to the council is that you've got limited options to amend your LEP and your DCP to address these matters. There's a state planning policy. You've got a couple of bits to look at there. So the housing policy, the set overrides LEPs, and Section 149 of the housing policy basically means that the apartment design guide prevails over your DCP. So that's just a couple of points to note. Secondly, there are a couple of responses that have been published in response to the Productivity Commission's report. One's from the Australian Institute of Architects, which I'd commend to the Council to review and read and understand. In particular, on pages 9 and 10, where they talk about design panels in particular and weakening sole access provisions. It's not a good idea. The provisions that are in the ADG and are in the housing SEP are already flexible. And they allow developers quite a good deal of flexibility. Doing away with minimum standards is a bad idea, in my opinion. And that's reflected in the comments from the Greater Sydney Commission, which you also should have, that they've done a response to, which is called Doing Density Done Well. And it makes many of the similar points about the Productivity Commission's report. So I commend that to the Council to read and review and understand as well. And finally, my professional association, PIA, they've stuck their oar in the mix as well, and they've basically said that the real costs that have been added to housing in Sydney and New South Wales are about finance, about high interest rates, construction costs, not about planning. So look, I'm not against density. I'm very much in favour of density. I'm also very much in favour of what the Council's doing in relation to affordable housing too. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks very much, sir. Our last speaker on item 27 is Elaine James of Summerhill.
Hello to the new council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just very briefly, I acknowledge Councillor Jess for her fantastic work in relation to affordable housing and her deep dive into planning, and would like to congratulate the current council and for Councillor Jess for putting forward something to attempt to address housing affordability in the Inner West with the first kind of business meeting of the new council. So well done, Jess. As the previous speaker has said, I would like to support the council in that they are recognising the seriousness of the housing affordability crisis and genuinely seeking ways that they can influence and improve the situation for residents of the Inner West, of which I am one. I am also a long-term student and observer of Australian property, in particular Sydney and the Inner West, so I do believe that I speak or that I have some knowledge of this, not necessarily planning. I'm not a planner, so no pretension there. I do think that the undertaking, item number 2 of the motion, that we need to provide more housing in the Inner West Council areas, I support that. And I think that the key findings of the New South Wales Productivity and Equality Commission report definitely warrant further investigation, and I feel that we have the right people in council on both sides of the chamber today to have a really productive conversation around what we can achieve for our citizens. One thing in particular that is top of mind for me is in what ways can we improve business processes within the council to facilitate a speedier and less temeritous or uncertain situation for developers. And also I'd like to ask council to consider that there are developers of a range of different sizes. They may be your mum and dad developers who are building a duplex or a townhouse to accommodate ageing parents, or it may be your very large scale developers who are doing 200 plus units. So when we're talking about developers, if we could please just consider some of the different scales of a development that may be undertaken. In short, I would just like to say, can we please consider ways that we can improve business processes within council? I also am not in favour of throwing out minimum standards, and I think that part of minimum standards must include access to solar as well as parking and minimum apartment sizes, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks very much, Elaine. And our last speaker is for item 41, and that is Marco De Angelis of Cromer.
Thank you, councillors. My name is Marco De Angelis, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the building of a social enterprise cafe at Together 2. It's at the Rozelle Neighbourhood Centre, the corner of Darling Street and Denison in Rozelle. This concept started years ago, and when I came on board 3 years ago, the staff there had dreams of this beautiful cafe with an amazing menu, and all the profits coming from this social enterprise cafe was going to be put to other programs. I could share that same dream with you, but 25 years of hospitality experience, 16 of those in a local area, won't let me do that because I know how hard it is. I understand the challenges in the hospitality industry, and when your full attention is going to turning a profit, it's still really, really hard. So when you're trying to do a lot of good in that organisation, it makes it even harder. So I brought that dream crashing down and was very realistic with the goals and the purpose of the cafe. So what we've done, there's been a lot of delays over the last few years for different reasons, and that's been a godsend in a way because it's given us time to think about the programs we can run through it. It's given me time to go around and look at other social enterprises, many of which are quite underwhelming. You get a lot of people with really good hearts wanting to do amazing things in the community, and they try those things, but the big challenge is sustainability, and I want to make sure that this project is sustainable, and I have the experience to be able to combine that with the community work that we do now. So we've started our programs in the centre right now. We have a school leavers program for young people with disability that come and get work experience through the cafe, or it's not through the cafe, but through the programs we have now. A lot of places you go to that are supporting people with disability, unfortunately, are really isolated. You go there, there's beautiful programs, but there's a big room full of everyone all together, and that's it. There's no combining. We threw that model in the bin. We've integrated that into our community program, and with our partnership with Good in the Hood, which is a local charity that does food relief and connects our vulnerable citizens in the local community, we've integrated that with our school leavers program so we can work hard to give them experience, real life experience out in the real world, and then we want to continue that with the cafe. So we'll work in partnership with the council. We'll build a community space that's multifaceted. We combine community. It's a nice space to come, gives people an ability to contribute to their community, which is really underrated, I feel. I've seen many lives changed by just giving them that ability to contribute in different ways, volunteering in other ways. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it. We need your support in this. We need the council to help us, and I hope you really look at it favourably. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Marco. And as mentioned previously, we have a representative here from Ashfield Bowling Club to speak to item 44, the lease of that club, and that is Stephen Dodd of Ashfield.
Hi, councillors. My name is Stephen Dodd. This is Ronnie Karam. We're acting directors at Ashfield Bowling Club. We've lived in the community for more than 15 years, and for 15 years we've been proud, dedicated members of the ABC. This club is more than just a drinking hole or a place for barefoot bowls. It's a lifeline for our community. We bring together people from every walks of life, fostering friendships, forging connections, and combating the atomisation of community tearing at our social fabric. Our purpose is simple but vital: to provide a welcoming space where everyone in the inner west can come together, engage, and enhance their well-being through meaningful social interaction. We're proud to be a welcoming place where the community can belong, from young families to older residents, where no one feels left behind. In the past 2 months, we've undergone significant transformations. Ronnie and I were voted on as new board members. We've removed deadwood, ushered in a new era of total transparency, accountability, and compliance. Membership is more than doubled. We've implemented robust governance practices that put the interests of our members and the community first. No shortcuts, no hidden agendas, no locusts feeding off the club, just clear, responsible leadership. While we focus on building future connections, we deeply honour our history. The club proudly celebrates its 135th anniversary next month and houses memorials and honour rolls to veterans, a respectable tribute that will always have its place as we look ahead. However, the club has faced challenges. Small clubs like ours often face threats from those acting in bad faith, and we've witnessed this firsthand. But we're here with good intentions to set this right, not with glib affirmations or can-do platitudes, but with action. We've engaged top professionals to streamline operations, address historical failings, and implement safeguards to ensure that any past transgressions cannot be repeated. We are committed to building a transparent, reliable, and welcoming environment. Our love for the place runs deep. We live across the street, yet we're always at the club, volunteering our time and effort to keep the drinks cold, the bills paid, the dollars traceable, and the vibe welcoming. Why? Because the community needs this space, and we need the community. Transparency is now the backbone of our operations. We rigorously comply with all regulations and hold ourselves fully accountable to our members. This is the only way forward, and it's precisely what our community deserves. We are committed to building a transparent, reliable and welcoming environment. Viable, reliable and readily approachable. We are an open book, ready to work closely with council and community to ensure the club remains a vital hub. That's non-negotiable. We sincerely appreciate the council's support over the years. Today we request a favourable renewal of our lease. With your help and your confidence in our recent appointment, our commitment is to improve our service to the community, providing a venue where people can come together, connect and thrive. Our gas is real too. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Okay, that concludes the contributions from the public gallery. So we will move on to condolence motions, of which there is one, which has been tabled as a mayoral minute. It's a condolence motion for Barry Noel Vining, OAM, and I'll now speak to that. Barry Vining passed away on September 29, surrounded by his family. He watched the Newtown Jets win the New South Wales Cup Grand Final in the Rugby League and suffered a heart attack after cheering them to victory. His life was celebrated at Henson Park, a place that he knew very well, on the 8th of October with a large crowd of family, friends and Newtown Jets players, officials, volunteers and supporters in attendance. Barry Vining grew up in Camperdown and was thoroughly committed to the Newtown Blue Bags and Jets throughout his entire life. He was a highly successful businessman in the international air freight industry. Barry joined the Newtown Rugby League Football Club board in 1980 and became the president in 1986. Along with fellow director Terry Rowney, he was one of the most pivotal figures in keeping the club alive in their wilderness years between 1984 and 1990, when they did not field a team in any grade of rugby league. As the club president, Barry was renowned for his negotiating skills, his patience, strategic ability and top-level administrative expertise. He was president in the club's years in the third tier New South Wales Rugby League Metropolitan Cup competition between 1991 and 1999. And along with Terry Rowney and the club's patron John Singleton, Barry helped negotiate Newtown's promotion into the first tier of the New South Wales Rugby League in 2000. Under Barry's term of leadership, the club ascended from the depths of rugby league oblivion into it being a well-respected and viable member of the flagship competition of the New South Wales Rugby League, winning premiership titles in 2012, 2019 and 2024, as well as the national championship playoff against Queensland in 2019. I might add also that the Newtown Jets are, I think, about the third or fourth highest selling rugby league franchise for merchandise, despite the fact that they haven't been in the premier competition for 40 years. So he made the Newtown Jets cool again. The club continues to participate successfully in the second tier level of rugby league in Australia, and the Jets story is one of the great survival sagas of modern rugby league. Barry Vining's presidency from 1986 to 2018 and his administrative and organisational capabilities most assuredly share the same legendary status as the Newtown Jets club. Aside from rugby league, Barry also served in the international air freight industry for 45 years. He was a director of the Australian Federation of International Freight Forwarders for 24 years from 1975 to 1999. In 1995, Barry was elected as Vice President of the International Federation of Freight Forwarders. And in 2001, Barry was awarded the Order of Australia for his services to the freight industry and to rugby league football. Without a doubt, he's one of the greatest figures in the Newtown Jets' 116-year history. The Inner West community extends sincere condolences to his wife, Vicky, his daughters, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Rest in peace, Barry Noel Vining. I'll now move that the Council write to the family of Barry Vining to express our gratitude for the contribution he made throughout his life to our local community, the Newtown Jets and the Australian freight industry, and that Council work with the Vining family and the Newtown Jets to create a memorial to Barry and his lifelong service to the Jets and the Inner West community at his beloved Henson Park. So I will move that way. Is there any councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Macri?
Chair, I think it's important that we do acknowledge people that go above and beyond in the community, and they leave such a legacy behind that he really got in there when the Newtown Jets were down and out and helped go through the dark days to the great days. I listened intently to the eulogy, and you left out one of his great achievements. He brought KISS here in 1980 when he was in the air freight industry. And one of his key sayings that he actually brought his children up on and told everyone, when you fail, you fail. You will fail in life. You just got to go back and work harder. And I think that's something that we can all take and use in our lives as well. Tremendous fellow and a great loss. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Macri. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to move a procedural motion to consider a number of items in globo.
I'll go to the Deputy Mayor for that in one moment. Just to let everybody know in the public gallery, you're more than welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting. Some items will get moved around, so the agenda won't necessarily be exactly as it is printed. Some things might get brought forward, others move back. The proceedings are broadcast live onto YouTube, so if you wanted to go home, you can watch the outcome of the vote on your item there, but you're also very welcome to stay here as well. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I've just provided a number of items that we might consider in global, and I thank all councillors, including Councillor Atkins, for their collaboration on this and for our conversations.
Okay, so those have been displayed on the screen. Now, for the benefit of new and returning councillors, I'll just remind everybody of the process here. If any one councillor objects to an item being moved on block, it is their right to have that taken out and debated in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. So we have to agree by consensus whether there are items that we are willing to move at the start of the meeting in order to move the agenda along. So I'm going to go through each of these. As I read out the item, if you object to it being dealt with now, let me know and it will be taken out of the list. Item 5, Quong Tart Plaza. Item 10, Summerhill Lewisham Suburb Realignment. Item 11, Audit and Risk Committee Minutes. Item 13, rescheduling of the November 2024 Council meeting. Item 16, Investment Report as at 31 August. Item 22, Disclosures of Interest for Designated Persons. Item 26, Notice of Motion, A Circular Economy for Soft Plastics and Other Hard to Recycle Items. Item 29, Notice of Motion to consult the community on the dual naming of one major park in each ward. Item 30, Town Hall Open Day Festivals. Item 33, Prospect Street Shared Zone. Item 35, Microforests in every ward. Item 39, Hoskins Park Toilet Block and Shed. And item 41, Social Enterprise Cafe at Together 2 for Disability Employment. So there's no objection to those. It's been moved by Councillor Howard, seconded by Councillor Atkins, that those recommendations be adopted en bloc. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. I'm just going to ask the officers to provide me with an updated list so we can go back to the next item on the agenda, which is the first item, draft annual financial statements for the financial year of 2023-2024. We have officers here from the New South Wales Audit Office. It is our practice to hear from them briefly about their assessment of the financial statements. They are also available to answer questions that are put by councillors. So I'm now going to hand off over to the Audit Office to speak to the statements.
Thank you and good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and those present. I'm Cherie Boldertude, Associate Director from the Audit Office of New South Wales. I'm pleased to inform Council that our audit of the general purpose financial statements and special purpose permissible income for general rates is now complete. Following the receipt of the signed financial statements, we will be able to issue unmodified opinions. I am pleased to report that the audit has gone smoothly this year, supported by good cooperation from management, enabling us to provide clearance on our review earlier this month. This year, Council's infrastructure, property, plant and equipment was again a primary area of focus for the audit team. Council obtained expert valuations of its stormwater drainage, seawalls, wharves, open space, parks and bridge assets. In addition to this, management fair valued its other assets not comprehensively revalued during the year with the support of external valuers and in-house expertise. In total, the combined impact of the comprehensive revaluation and the fair value assessment has led to a $116.6 million increase to Council's infrastructure, property, plant and equipment, and combine this with additions, this now totals $2.9 billion at 30th of June 2024. The general purpose financial statements include 6 key performance measures required by the Office of Local Government, which we audit as part of our engagement. Council has met 4 of the 6 performance measures. This is the same as the last 2 years. The 2 that are not met are operating performance ratio, which compares Council's operating expenditure to its operating revenue. Council was only marginally below the 0% benchmark at 0.7% negative. The second was with respect to rates and annual charges outstanding percentage. The benchmark target here is less than 5%. Council achieved 7.5%, which whilst above the target is an improvement on the prior year of 8.6%. Management has included further commentary with respect to these benchmarks in the financial statements at note G1-1. In closing, I'd like to thank management for their cooperation during the year, which we very much appreciated, and this supports the timeliness of our review and our reporting. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cherie. Are there any questions for the Audit Office? No? If not, I'll thank you for your time and we'll move on to the recommendation of officers. Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move the officer's recommendation that Council endorse the financial statements to be placed on public exhibition.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Atkins. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you very much for your time. The item 2, State of the Inner West Report. Is there anyone who wishes to move the motion?
I will move the motion.
Moved by Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Barlow.
I'm very happy to speak to the motion.
No, not that. Or is there someone who wanted to raise an issue about the motion, or like why it wasn't moved on block? So someone must have wanted to discuss it. No.
Happy to move the motion and speak to the motion.
Yep.
It's very pleasing to see the progress that Council is making on enacting our priorities of being environmentally sustainable, livable, creative, affordable, resilient and healthy. We are 100% divested from fossil fuels. We've introduced food recycling and saved thousands of tonnes of carbon emissions. We've saved Leichhardt Oval, opened the White Bay Power Station as a world-class arts venue, committed to renovations of LPAC and Henson Park. We're upgrading pocket parks, improving pedestrian access across the LGA and building the Greenway. We are taking steps to increase housing supply every day. And we can only do this with strong finances, a strong strategy, a strong direction and collaborative relationship with staff to get the work done. We should all be proud of what we've done, and I commend the report to Council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Scott. Councillor Barlow, do you wish to speak to the motion? That's waived. Is there anyone who's against the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Item 3, local democracy groups.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like
Councillor
to.
D'Arienzo.
Thank you. I'd like to move the motion in an amended format.
Please do.
Thank you. Do you have that? Thanks. I will work my way through this slowly. Thank you, firstly, to the staff for bringing this report and preparing us for the next term of local democracy groups. I fully support the proposal for the new local democracy groups for the 2024 to 2028 council term. These groups will strengthen community engagement and give residents a greater voice in shaping our policies. There are 2 proposed changes that I bring for your support. Firstly, the staff have suggested the consolidation of the Planning and Heritage Local Democracy Group with the Housing and Affordability Group, which I support. It's clear that planning and housing affordability are inextricably connected. The way that we plan our suburbs and infrastructure shapes both the availability and the cost of housing. Secondly, to reflect the diversity of our inner west community, I propose we also incorporate the Renters Local Democracy Group into this group and rename it the Housing for All. This new group will have at least 4 renters and a representative with lived experience in boarding houses to ensure that those most impacted by housing challenges are heard from directly in our decision making. The new purpose statement rightly emphasises affordable, sustainable housing and renter protections as essential for maintaining a vibrant and inclusive community. We have nominations from Councillor Clay, Councillor Barlow and myself to sit on the selection panel for the recruitment of all the local democracy groups, and I'm confident that we'll assemble a cohort that reflects the depth of expertise, skills and lived experience from across the inner west.
Chair, I'd like to second that if I could. Thank you. And just to speak briefly to it, I really echo Councillor D'Arienzo's support for the amalgamation of HAC with the Planning and Heritage Group. I think the 2 issues are intrinsically linked, and I think that is eminently sensible. And I'm also really proud of our commitment to include renters and to ensure that renters have representation on this local democracy group as well, because again, the issues that they are facing in terms of housing affordability in particular is also inextricably linked to the issues that this democracy group will now consider. I think it's important to note that we have one of the highest proportions of renters of any LGA in the state, along with one of the highest proportions of people residing in boarding houses as well. So it's fantastic to see these 2 groups will have representation in this committee. And to note that despite being such a high proportion of our community, because of the nature of renting, because it's often quite transitory, because renters often are struggling with job commitments and other life commitments, they often have less of a say than people who own their own home in our community. So I really welcome this report and this amendment from Councillor D'Arienzo.
Thank you very much for that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it?
Yes, please.
Councillor Atkins.
I do not wish to speak against the whole of the motion. Could the minute takers please? I would like to move that council retains separate planning and heritage and housing and affordability groups. I do think that there are different issues, even though they're related, and that it would be better to keep groups that were focused on the 2 separate issues. As somebody has noted from the public gallery tonight, the issue around affordability is not necessarily issues about planning, it is broader. I would like to see those groups kept separate, acknowledging that the numbers are likely to be against me here. I'd also like the idea of grassroots democracy to be more recognised in these groups, in that As well as formal membership, we allow any community member who wishes to attend any of our local democracy groups to do so and to be able to have some input into that. And that local democracy groups can make recommendations directly to council meetings for consideration. I think it's really important to think of these groups as being about grassroots and to think back to examples like the precinct committees in the former Leichhardt Council, which had a much broader opportunity for community members to attend and have input. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Atkins. We'll now need to deal with the amendment before proceeding with the primary motion. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Antonio. Do you wish to speak to it? Okay, that's waived. Is there any further debate of the amendment? I'll go to, I should have asked the mover whether you wish to incorporate that. No. Do you wish to speak in reply?
Just briefly to say that one of the key pieces of feedback that came from when we brought together the local democracy groups at roundtables at different points throughout the last term was that they wanted further opportunities for collaboration. And in fact, in speaking with people from planning and heritage and housing affordability, what they called for was a collapse of the two groups together. So staff, I understand, have actually taken this feedback on board, and that's why the proposal is for the group to be amalgamated. So I don't support number 1 for that reason. And in terms of number 2 and number 3, there are plenty of opportunities where community members can participate. In fact, I suggest that we send out the EOI really broadly and encourage everyone within our community who has expertise and relevant life experience to be able to participate by joining the local democracy group.
Thanks very much for that. I'll now put the amendment. All those in favour, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? There are 10 against. That has been defeated. We'll return to the primary motion. Is there anyone who would like to speak against the primary motion or to further amend it? If not, I'll go to the mover for a right of reply. That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? I'll recommit that vote because it was a bit unclear. So we've dealt with the amendment. We're now voting on the primary motion, which includes all of the appointments to committees. So to put it, I don't know, clearly, I think it would be confusing if a councillor who was to be appointed to a committee was to vote against their appointment. That would raise the question of whether they were agreeing to be nominated or not. So I'll just recommit that vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item 4, alcohol-free zones and alcohol prohibited areas for the Balmain Peninsula for New Year's Eve. Councillors? Does anyone wish to move that motion? Councillor Macri will move the motion. Do you wish to speak to it? Is there a seconder for the motion? If not, that will lapse.
I'd like to propose a foreshadowed motion, if this motion is to fail.
Which would now become the primary motion because there is no seconder for the first motion.
All right, well, I've provided my foreshadowed motion to the minute takers. If it could be displayed, please.
Okay, I'll ask that that's displayed on the screen. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor, I will. I understand the report that's been provided to Council. I understand the concerns around the availability of amenities and the fact that that might have led to some unsociable behaviour on New Year's Eve. I would suggest that the way we deal with a lack of public amenities is by proactively funding public amenities at times when we know the public will be in need of those amenities. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Drury, who spoke so passionately a year ago when this item was on the agenda. He drew on his experience as a social worker working with disadvantaged children and meaningfully and passionately spoke to us about the need to consider whether the empowerment of police is something that this council wants to do. in circumstances where there are other more pro-social ways to deal with issues that we see before us. And it is firmly my belief that the funding of public amenities to deal with public problems is the way to do that. And I commend this foreshadowed motion to the councillors.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Howard. Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it? Councillor Macri?
Chair, I'm just concerned that the fact that it was to approve public consultation. So effectively we're voting against consultation, asking the community what they want, if they support an alcohol-free zone or not. That's my only concern with voting against the motion. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. If there's no further discussion, I'll go to Councillor Scott for a right of reply.
Waived.
That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried with Councillor Macri against. The next item, we've dealt with Quong Tart. The next item is item 6, Leichhardt Park Aquatic Centre upgrade. Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I would like to move an amended version of the officer's recommendations. And if that could be displayed on the screen, I've provided wording to the minute taker earlier.
I'll ask the officers to display that wording on the screen.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You need a seconder before I speak, or you're going to let me speak now?
No, please proceed.
Okay. I'd just like to really thank the staff for their efforts to date in advancing this project, and I'm sure the whole community will be delighted to see the proposal put on exhibition. The renders look fantastic. I can't wait to go there once this is completed in a few years' time. I do want to note the increased budget, which is due entirely to inflation and supply costs, and I commend the staff for value engineering and managing the whole council budget so as to allow us to be able to continue the full value of investment in this project that it now requires. I do just want to also say, however, that we know that in these major projects, quality assurance is something we really need to be across so that the community can have certainty that councillors are across the details and making sure that this doesn't blow out or become unsustainable in ways that we've seen other major projects, particularly pool projects at other councils, become a real drain on their resources. And so I'm requesting with the amendment that staff bring back a monthly report, as we've done with other major projects, including food recycling, so that councillors can be across every stage of the project and assure themselves that the quality assurance is being maintained across the lifetime of the project.
Thanks very much for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Tastan. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed.
And I just want to say thank you to Leichhardt Swimming Pool. When I first came to Australia in 2004, I didn't know how to swim. I did my lessons from there. It meant to me a lot. I really support whatever needs to be done, and I'm supporting. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tastan. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it or to ask a question? Councillor Macri.
Chair, I just want to say it's an opportunity for us here. You know, I really support upgrades of all council facilities because that's our core work. I'm excited by this. I've been involved in a number of pool upgrades from Neck Kellerman, Fanny Durack, then the Ashfield pool on the previous council, and they're all exciting projects. This will be another exciting project, and it really adds to the community and benefits the community directly. It's a direct benefit. But I don't think we emphasise enough when we actually talk about these projects where the funding comes from. And if you have a look at the table, a lot of it comes from our 7-11 funding. And that only comes to us through the increase through development. And we've got to acknowledge that so people understand when they get development, they actually are getting something back. There is something coming back to the community for that. I just think we should try and do that a little bit better to say, you know, this is actually funded by development as well, not just through the reserves and appreciation. I just think it gives the community more understanding the benefits of when development goes right, what it does do for the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Macri. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll go to Councillor Scott for a right of reply.
Waived.
That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 7, impact of Totti's on surrounding residential community. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation and to speak to it briefly. I was going to say a couple of months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, I held or chaired an on-site meeting in Rozelle nearby to Totti's, which some of you might remember as the former Three Weeds, which is now a very popular high-end restaurant, which is run by Justin Hem's group, and which has been inundated with customers because it's very popular. And they're bringing in a lot of cars, and it's the traffic conditions around there are pretty complicated. And so council officers are seeking to work with local residents to address that. Some of it's insoluble. The restaurant's very popular. That's not entirely a bad thing. We can't stop that from being the case. But there were some examples that were raised at the on-site meeting, such as the fact that the venue was still advertising to customers when they booked to come that there was ample local parking, which is certainly not the truth. And so through the process of the meeting, which representatives of the venue attended, there was a whole range of things that were identified that needed to be addressed, some of them by the venue, some of them by council, largely through greater or more proactive compliance work. And this report represents the outcome of that. Just to the resident who spoke earlier, I want to acknowledge her legitimate frustrations, and I'm very happy to continue to meet with individual residents who are being impacted, and we're going to need to work on this over the next few months to try to improve things in a range of ways. And I think that's what the officers have identified in the report, so I thank them very much for their work. So I'll move that way. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the motion or to amend it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. We'll move on to item 8, local traffic committee meeting.
I'd like to move that, please.
Yes, I'll just wait until Councillor Scott has left the room. The Deputy Mayor will move adoption of the traffic committee minutes. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, thanks. So I just again want to thank the staff and thank the community representative who came to speak earlier tonight. I'm pleased to see the Inner West Council is progressing with plans to reduce speeds on key local streets in the Marrickville-Midgebury ward. We know this will go a long way to making our roads safer for all road users. Reducing speeds on local roads was something raised with me routinely during the council election, particularly in Sydenham, I will say, and so it's exciting to see some of that work commence. I also wanted to highlight a very exciting project, which is the raising of the pedestrian crossing at Marrickville Road and Despontis Street. This is something that the Marrickville community has been campaigning for many years. It's the main, on the main drag there, it's the pedestrian crossing right next to Liquorland. And it's very hard to see pedestrians trying to cross there. Ever since it was constructed, it has been a problem, and we have been campaigning to have it raised. So I'm really proud to have been able to work with the community and staff to see this important work happen. I just want to congratulate and thank all those members in the community who've raised this and who continue to fight to make our streets safer for pedestrians, cyclists and motorists.
Thanks very much, Councillor Howard. I'm not sure if we can describe a pedestrian crossing next to Liquorland as a traffic calming measure. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Yes,
Seconded
please.
by Councillor Atkins.
With an amendment, please.
Yep, please proceed.
If the minute takers could put it up. Just relates to the Newtown South LATM proposals, which are again exciting to see happening and are connected to the Inner West at 40 project as well. Just to change the recommendation in relation to Alice Lane, which is to become one way, to allow cyclists to cycle both ways, but subject to a safety mirror being installed. Thank you.
Okay. Are you happy to incorporate that, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah.
That's incorporated. So Councillor Atkins will become the seconder of the primary motion. Are there further amendments? I'd like to propose one just in relation to, I might just ask the advice of officers, which item on the traffic committee agenda is the boulevard that was spoken to by the resident previously? Anyone have that?
Chair, it's item 1.
Item 1. I'd like to propose deferral of that recommendation pending further community consultation. I think if we go down again and talk to the residents, we can try to get consensus over what the planting should be. I'm in support of them, but I don't want to proceed with the project without having explored all opportunities to get full agreement from all residents in the street, given it's a significant project. So I'll propose that as an amendment. Are you happy to incorporate that, Councillor Howard?
I absolutely am.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. That's incorporated as well. Are there any further amendments to the Traffic Committee minutes? No? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. We'll move on to item 9, the minutes of the Flood Risk Management Advisory Committee. Councillor Howard?
Yep. Councillor Atkins just is leaving.
Just wait while Councillor Atkins is leaving the room. Ask that be recorded. Councillor Howard?
Thank you, and again, thank you again to the staff and the community members who serve on the Flood Management Advisory Committee. The report seeks endorsement to update the flood risk management strategies for both the Alexandra Canal and Johnstons Creek White Creeks area. Following significant community consultation, it identifies key projects that require work as a priority in both flood-prone areas. I note that the prioritised projects total roughly $20 million, and that council spends roughly $1.5 million per year funded by the Stormwater Services Levy. So I think this is really supportable, this report. I think this process is really important. I do think we need to have a conversation with the state and federal governments about funding for stormwater works, as we and other councils remain significantly constrained in what we can do to uplift and upgrade our stormwater. In the meantime, it's important that we continue to support the important work of developing modern and responsive flood management plans that build our resilience in the face of regular storm, flooding and tidal events, especially as they intensify as a result of climate change. So I commend the report.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Howard. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Happy to second that.
Seconded by Councillor Scott. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to oppose it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 14.
Chair, I just have questions for staff. I wasn't sure what I should.
Oh, sorry, in relation to item 9?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to rescind that vote, go back to Councillor Barlow to be able to put a question through the chair.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask the council staff, of the issues that were raised by residents during the consultation period about the Alexandra Canal that were out of scope of flood risk, how were those issues handled or progressed for action by council staff?
I'll put that question to the council officers.
Through you, Chair, in the report there's a matrix which talks to the concerns that were raised and some commentary around it.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, has the grant for a modern flood study of Marrickville South been received?
Put that question to the officers.
Through you, Chair, to my understanding, it has not been yet.
Thank you for that. Councillor Barlow.
Thanks. Through you, Chair, again to the council staff, when will the Cooks River flood study be?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through you, Chair, we're through the early planning stage of that at the moment, and we're looking to proceed with that starting from next year.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? If not, I'll put that motion again. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, I declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 14, Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference.
Mr. Mayor, I think you might have skipped over item 12, which I'd like to move, which is representation on committees.
Okay, thank you for that. Yep. Item 12, Councillor Representation on Committees.
Thank you. I'd like to move an amended version of this motion, which has been provided to the minute taker earlier, detailing the agreed representation on committees, and I thank all of the councillors in the room for their productive conversations about representation on these committees. I know that we're all looking forward to doing a lot of good work on our internal and our external committees. I can go through the appointments if you like, or you can, Mr. Chair.
I might ask you to read them out if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely. So for the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee, I'm nominating myself. For the Flood Management Committee, Councillors Howard and Barlow. For the Local Traffic Committee, Councillor Macri, and as an alternate, Councillor Atkins. For the General Manager's Performance Assessment Panel, the Mayor, Councillor Howard and Councillor Antonino. Please tell me if I'm not saying that right. Antonio? Antoniou. Gotcha. Everybody heard that? Antoniou. Yep. Radio. For the Major Capital Works Committee, myself, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Blake and the Deputy Mayor. For the Callan Park Community Trust Board, the Mayor, Councillor Byrne. For the Cooks River Alliance Management Committee, Councillors Howard and as an alternate, Councillor Barlow. For the New South Wales Public Libraries Association, Councillor Carlisle and as an alternate, Councillor Antoniou. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Carlisle. For the Parramatta River Catchment Group, Councillor Ferguson as an alternate, Councillor Blake. For the Southern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, SSROC, the Mayor, Councillor Scott, and as an alternate, Councillor Atkins. For the Sydney Airport Community Forum, SACF, the Mayor. For the Sydney Coastal Council Group, Councillor Barlow. For the Sydney Eastern Planning Panel, myself and John Engler. And I'd just like to explain that last recommendation. John Engler is a community housing expert. He is the CEO of Shelter New South Wales. He is also an Inner West resident, and it's our suggestion that he represents the council in that second councillor nominated spot in order to provide his expertise and his particular perspective on housing to this important decision-making group.
I'm just going to come back to you in a moment to ask about how we would go about confirming Mr. Engler's agreement to that, because I think we would need to do that before resolving it. So if I can just ask the appropriate officer to have a chat to Councillor Scott about what the precise wording would be to ensure that we've got that process right. And I'll ask whether there is a seconder for the motion. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the motion or to amend it? Okay, no. I'm not trying to cause a problem here. I just think unless we've got something in writing from Mr. Engler saying that he agrees to being nominated, that there needs to be some kind of process. So can I ask for advice about that?
My advice is that at the end of item 13, we put comment subject to the approval from Mr. John Engler. I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologise.
Acceptance, I think, rather than approval. You happy with that, Councillor
Yes,
Scott?
if the minute takers can record a second point or an additional piece of wording there, subject to his approval.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear. There's no further questions. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we've dealt with 12 now. I'll move on to item 14, Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amended version of the council officer's recommendation with the nominees for delegates to attend the LG New South Wales Conference in Tamworth in November.
Please proceed.
Thank you. The council is entitled to 9 delegates. After discussion across the council chamber, there were 4 delegates who wished to nominate, and those are Councillor Clay, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Antoniou and Councillor Tastan.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Atkins. Do you wish to speak to it? Okay. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That brings us to item 15, the investment report at 30 September 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the investment report.
Thanks, Councillor Scott.
And I will speak to the investment report. I would like to thank the staff for their work in bringing this investment report to us again, which shows this month a healthy return on our investments. So healthy, in fact, that we can continue our commitment to being 100% divested from fossil fuels, the only council in New South Wales to do so. And in doing that and acknowledging that, I would like to move the officer's recommendation that we sell our Suncorp shares, as Suncorp has recently been fully acquired by ANZ, an institution which is not classified as non-fossil fuel lending. This will come at a loss to the council of $140,000. However, in the context of our $230 million investment portfolio at a market return, this is a loss that the council can make back relatively quickly. And the reason that we are able to do this, to have progressive principles and to stick by them even at a cost, is because of the strong financial management that this council has shown over this last term and will continue to do so in the next term.
Thanks very much, Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Do you wish to speak to it? Please do.
Yeah, just briefly, I think it's really great to see that we're part of a council that cares deeply about ethically investing in the work that we do, and I commend the motion to the chamber.
Okay, thank you for that. there any further discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Brings us to item 16, which is the investment report for the previous month. Is there a mover for that?
Mr Mayor, that's been moved on block.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 17, Tempe train station. Councillor, the Deputy Mayor is recusing himself from the chamber. He has left. I'll ask the minute takers to note that.
Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Hi. I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it?
Briefly. We welcome this report and thank staff. It's good to see that Transport for New South Wales and the Inner West Council are working together to improve some of the issues around access, lighting and safety in the car park. That's improvements in lighting, line marking, the surface of the car park and an assessment of all other access points, including from the river. Inner West Council is responsible for the car park and it's important that we keep working with all the stakeholders to improve the access. The New South Wales State Government has made a significant investment in the Safe and Accessible Transport Program, which works to upgrade train stations and ferry wharves, including a $300 million boost in funding. We are required under federal and state law to upgrade all train stations, and I am assured that Tempe station will be upgraded along with all other stations. The priority of stations is determined by patronage and other factors. So I commend this motion.
Thanks very much, Councillor D'Arienzo. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow.
An amendment.
Yes, please proceed.
So I
Sorry,
also,
just for clarification, were you agreeing to second it as well as seeking to amend it, or just to amend it? Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
thank you. I also want to acknowledge the hard work of the council staff of inputting this report together. And I note that the responsibility of the maintenance is sort of an under discussion with Transport for New South Wales and Tahi, so I look forward to hearing back from council officers about the outcome of those discussions. I also understand that there are a number of ongoing conversations between relevant authorities on additional works that have been requested by the former council, including a further security assessment of the pathway along the Cooks River from Kendrick Park to Tempe train station by the New South Wales Police. So I recognise that resolving a course of action in this meeting wouldn't necessarily be prudent. However, I am proposing this amendment to respect the number of community members that in the previous council term have contacted council with their concerns about the safety and accessibility of Tempe train station. The previous council, upon hearing these concerns, resolved to act urgently, knowing that there would be increased use of the station with the Sydenham to Bankstown line closure. I think it's important, therefore, that we recommit to taking urgent and decisive action to improve the safety and amenity of the Tempe train station, to reflect the concerns of our community, to acknowledge that these issues are not new to us, and confirm our responsibility to the community to provide them with livable, connected neighbourhoods and transport.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Councillor D'Arienzo, do you wish to incorporate that amendment? That's incorporated into the primary motion. So we've got a primary motion moved by Councillor D'Arienzo, seconded by Councillor Barlow. Is there any further amendment? Councillor Macri.
Chair, I just want to raise an issue some of the users of the car park at Tempe Station have raised with me, and that is because there's no actual designated cycle path through there, bikes are sort of everywhere and pop out, and when they're reversing out of the spots, is that something staff could look into in actually highlighting a path where bikes could stay on so they don't end up underneath the car when it's reversing out if they come up unexpected? Is that something, a question through you to the staff, if that's something we could look at?
I'll put that question to the officers.
Through you, Chair, that's something we can investigate.
Chair, could I then add that as an amendment? An additional point?
Do you want to propose the wording to the minute taker?
Yep. That staff investigate a defined cycle path highlighted through painted strip through the car park.
No, you got to jot that down, brother.
Okay, all right. All right, now.
It's all right, we'll wait for it. Are there any, while we're waiting for Councillor Macri's amendment, do we have any further amendments or questions? No, we'll just wait for him. Okay, thank you for that. The amendment's now been displayed on the screen. I'll ask the mover of the motion if they wish to incorporate it. That's incorporated into the primary motion. Is there any further amendment to the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. I think that brings us to item 18, post-exhibition of planning principles for the Inner West. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Yes, Councillor D'Arienzo.
Thank you. I have some proposed amendments to this motion.
Have you provided those to the minute takers?
Indeed. Here they are. I'd like to start by giving my sincere thanks to the staff for bringing this report. Over the past few years, we've seen a real shift in the way that our community approaches the housing crisis. There's growing recognition this is not just someone else's problem, it affects all of us. Whether it's through rising rents, housing insecurity, or seeing friends and loved ones pushed out of the area that they call home. I reflect back to 2016 when the Sydenham to Bankstown Urban Renewal Strategy proposed 35,000 new homes along the train line. I was the spokesperson for the Save Dully Action Group, and our community was critical of the imposed rezoning circles around the train stations. To be honest, it's what led me to this place. We connected with our neighbours, we signed petitions, we even brought out the planning minister at the time for a walk around the suburb. What we really wanted was for our council to take control of local planning and to find the balance between sustainable development and protecting our community's character. I'm extremely pleased that Save Dully's submission is predominantly supportive of our overall direction with our planning principles and acknowledges the need to deliver more housing in Dulwich Hill. Their stance shows that residents are ready for a new conversation, one that's focused on finding fair, long-term solutions rather than opposing change outright. With over 1,200 submissions to our new housing policy, we can see the large majority of respondents in support of measures such as increasing the number of homes around train stations, light rails, increased shop-top housing on main streets and new public housing throughout the area. It's clear that people are no longer waiting for others to solve this crisis. We're committed to getting our LEP in place as soon as possible and working with the New South Wales Government to deliver our contribution of 7,800 new homes in 5 years.
Chair, may I move an extension of time of 2 minutes?
Moved by Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Carlisle. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Please proceed.
Thank you. But this isn't just about meeting targets. It's about ensuring that everyone in our community has access to affordable and secure housing. And we will walk and chew gum at the same time. While council officers are working on our LEP, we should be looking at other levers available to us to respond to the housing affordability crisis. And I draw your attention to point 7 of my motion. The Productivity and Equality Commission is a valued and respected authority, and their recent report on housing supply challenges and policy options in New South Wales is an important assessment on the challenges with building new homes in New South Wales. It makes some bold and audacious recommendations that jolt us into action. There is a chapter specifically on the development process. I propose that our council staff assess the recommendations from the report and investigate how they can be implemented in the Inner West to make the assessment system more efficient and effective. What we know is that design standards matter. We can balance design quality and housing affordability. What we want is heads on beds and keys indoors. We have over 31,000 apartments in the Inner West. I live in one of them. And what I know all too well is that solar access, air circulation, access to public space, building separation and pedestrian transport links are all critical for well-designed homes. I commend this motion.
Thanks very much, Councillor D'Arienzo. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just briefly, I'd like to thank Councillor Jess for actually updating her recommendation, because I would have struggled to vote for the original one, because I think it's important to have minimums in there and people do have access to solar. I've seen on many occasions, it's important in the old days when we used to approve things ourselves, to actually go out and look at what you approved and the impacts it made. And I'll never forget the time when a fellow asked me to go have a look at what we had approved. And he took me up into this bedroom and you couldn't even get a bed in there. It was horrendous. It really actually changed the way I thought we should do development. And we should think about the people that are going to live in the places as well as the people around. So I'm really looking forward to see what the staff come back with in their report, and we really need to get cracking. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Macri. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to oppose it?
Chair, I wish to amend.
Yes?
Yeah, I would like also to commend Councillor D'Arienzo on the amendments to what was originally proposed in item 27 and taking on the feedback from the community and for experts. I'm really excited to see that and work on this further. I think we all are in agreement that we do need better standards, not less. We're in an overlapping crisis of cost of living, housing and climate, and of course previous recommendations and not adhering to minimums would have essentially led to worse health outcomes and increased power bills for many. I want to make sure that we are enticing people to live in sustainable apartments through smart design and not creating a subclass on a developer's profit agenda. I agree that we do need to build quickly, and the council has an important role to play in that. And that's particularly around the kind of vision that we set out for what housing looks like in our community, particularly around accessibility. So I do want to put forward my amendments that I've sent through to, now I might have to amend on the fly here, but I would like to add that the council notes that New South Wales is only one of 2 states that are yet to sign up to the Silver Livable Housing Design Standards in the National Construction Code, a set of design standards that require new housing developments to basically offer accessibility for all people. Accessibility needs are something that all people, if we're lucky enough to age, do age into, and anyone is subject to significant changes in their life, and we need to make sure that housing is appropriate to all. Secondly, that the council note the need for increased standards around sustainability and design to ensure new builds are meeting council's goals of energy efficiency and equity, including cooling and heating measures, where possible solar panels being incorporated, and other best practice standards laid out by our council's own design excellence panel. I also wish to note that council notes that new residential buildings in Inner West need to be a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedrooms to accommodate broad types of living arrangements and stages. That is something that our public gallery did speak to, and it does address that the types of people, families and arrangements that are living in apartments are growing. The final point there as well is that council review their current DA approval with the goal to improve development processes that may cause friction, reduce visibility, and all types of housing supply in the Inner West, including public, community, affordable and market housing, in a report to the December council meeting. I really think we can reach these goals without co-signing on what was admittedly a flawed report, and I'm excited for this to frame an accessible, affordable and high quality of life throughout the Inner West.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? For the amendment? It's seconded by Councillor Barlow. I'm going to ask the mover of the primary motion whether they wish to incorporate those amendments into the primary motion.
If I could please, through you, Chair, ask a question to the staff.
Of course.
Could staff give an indication on number 3, 4, 5 and 6 and how, like what work would need to be undertaken in order to deliver this?
Okay, I'll put that question to the officers.
Through you, Chair, in terms of point 3 regarding the Silver Livable Housing Design Standards in the National Construction Code, that would be an advocacy piece.
Well, not even. It just notes that New South Wales is the only one of 2 states, so there's nothing about advocacy in the amendment.
In terms of item noted, Mr. Mayor, in terms of item 4, can I just comment that sustainability measures are already issues that are being considered for inclusion, and we do have some draft sustainability development controls that have been endorsed in the previous term of council for inclusion. In terms of item 5, best practice would suggest a mix of bedrooms up to and including 4 bedrooms needs to be considered. So studios, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 4 bedroom units. In terms of item 6,
I'm gonna really, I think item 6, and I understand this would have been drafted prior to the amended motion being tabled, but I think it's redundant.
I'm happy to strike it in case of redundancy.
Okay, that's withdrawn. So we've got items 3, 4 and 5. You've got that advice, Councillor D'Arienzo?
Yeah, I'm happy to incorporate.
They're incorporated into the primary motion. Are there any further amendments to the primary motion? If not, I'll go to Councillor D'Arienzo for a right of reply. That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. It's 8:31. Can I propose that we adjourn for a period of 5 minutes? So we'll reconvene the meeting at 8:36. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
I'm really happy with that. No. I'm really glad. And look, it's because
Okay. The meeting is reopened. We are up to item 19, faith-based housing roundtable. Councillor D'Arienzo.
Mr Mayor, if I could please move the officer's recommendation with an amendment. There we go.
That's been displayed on the screen. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please. So this motion aims to build on the outcomes of the faith-based housing roundtable. We are reinforcing Council's commitment to addressing the housing affordability crisis through innovative partnerships to repurpose land around the inner west owned by faith-based organisations. And to borrow from Rob Stokes earlier tonight, to serve the people who find themselves in situations of vulnerability. By making changes to our LEP, we can implement these recommendations and enhance the delivery of affordable and social housing and create more livable communities. The level of support for public and affordable housing is inspiring. In our feedback on our planning priorities, we saw 77% of respondents backing the New South Wales Government's policy for 30% public housing on government land, and 75% of respondents supporting exploring ways to convert faith-based and council-owned land into social housing, ensuring that these resources directly benefit those in need. It's clear that the community is ready to make bold changes. We are committed to adaptive reuse and using land assets to meet the broader social needs of the community. And I just wanted to ever so briefly raise two examples of creative developments around the inner west. One of them was spoken about. It was Fresh Hope's Nightingale units in Marrickville, 53 high quality, beautifully designed, affordable homes providing agency and freedom to the residents. And the second one is Habless in Summer Hill. This is a former furniture factory. It's been redeveloped into 20 independent units for people living with schizophrenia, plus a caretaker's unit, a clinic, and it makes a real difference to people to have a safe and secure home. It was brought about by Olav, who's a psychiatrist who is giving back to his community after realising the plight of men with schizophrenia, and that his offering, while compassionate, seeks to demonstrate it's also economically cost effective. I suggest we keep delivering more housing that serves people.
Thanks very much, Councillor D'Arienzo. Councillor Smith will second the motion.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Just to speak briefly to it, just to thank Rob and Amanda and the Faith Housing Alliance and all of their members for the work that they do, and also for their support partnering with Council to hold this roundtable and to discuss the really important issues. And I echo what Amanda said when she spoke at the public forum, that it was fantastic to hear the passion and the consensus in the room for addressing the housing crisis and for the role that faith organisations can play. I'm really excited about the opportunity to partner with the Alliance even further on this critical issue and to work with other faith-based organisations that own land in the community. And I'm really appreciative of the time and effort that you've put in for your drive to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? Councillor Atkins?
I don't want to speak against it or amend it at this point. I have a question through you to the mover of the motion.
Yes.
Is it intended that the planning framework changes that are proposed under 3, that Council would have an opportunity itself to review those changes before they were necessarily incorporated into the LEP? I'm just concerned because this roundtable was never in the Councillor events diaries. The rest of us didn't know it was happening, and this is the first we know of it. So just looking for an opportunity for broader Council input into that.
I think that's self-evident that there can't be an LEP adopted without the councillors voting to adopt it. But one amendment that you could make to point 4, to just for absolute clarity, would be that council incorporates the changes into the development of the draft local environment plan.
Yep, sure. I propose that amendment.
Is that okay? All good. Okay, that's incorporated. There's no further discussion. I'll go to Councillor D'Arienzo for a right of reply. That's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Brings us to item 20, Rozelle Village State Significant Development Application submission. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation once Councillor Scott has had a chance to leave the room. I've made a lot of comments about this issue on the public record over many years and in recent months, so I waive my right to speak to it now, but I think the issues are self-evident. Is there a seconder for the motion? That's seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak to it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Councillor Scott is able to come back into the room.
Mayor, can I please address item 21?
Yes.
I'd like to, I just sent an email just briefly through to the note takers and hopefully that can be displayed. I'm just asking that this item be deferred until the November meeting and that further information on the progress of how we will realise the Love Your Club program that we've resolved in the past to do will be incorporated into the report for the next meeting.
Councillor Howard, I'm happy to second that motion, but I've had a chat to the council officers about it. They'll be able to do a better job on both reports if it comes in December rather than November.
Yes, that's fine.
You're amenable to that?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That brings us to item 23, motions for Local Government New South Wales Conference. Councillor Atkins.
Yes, thank you. Could the minute takers please display the amended version which I provided to them?
That has been displayed on the screen. Councillor Atkins, do you wish to speak to those?
Only very briefly. I think the
Can I suggest? I think we have to deal with each motion consecutively. They're obviously separate issues. So can I ask you to speak to the first of the motions that you're proposing?
Sure. So the first motion relates to early childhood education and care centres. These amendments have been proposed to me by Councillor Carlisle and Councillor Scott, and I'm very happy to accept them. It makes it very clear what the pay rise offered is and refers to endorsing expedited bargaining rather than actually instructing the Local Government New South Wales bargaining team, which I agree is probably more appropriate. This particular motion relates to recognising our wonderful early childhood workers and asking all councils to support better paying conditions for them and ensure that their services meet national quality standards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So is there a seconder for that motion?
Happy to second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Carlisle. Do you wish to speak to it? No? Is there anyone who wishes to amend that? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Councillor Atkins, your second motion.
Can you just scroll up so
I'll
I can see which one it
is?
is?
Yeah, thank you. That's fair request. Can I ask the minute takers to display the next motion on the screen?
Okay. This is simply amendment to the wording to make it more appropriate in the sense of what people with disability generally prefer these days, just in terms of language. Look, it goes without saying that council should be supporting people and workers with disability to be paid properly and to be subject to ethical labour practices and not to any more minimal practices or wages that are sometimes applied to workers with disability. Thank you.
Seconder for the motion?
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor Antonou. Do you wish to speak to it? No? Any amendment? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Can I ask that the next motion is displayed on the screen? Councillor Atkins?
If we could continue to scroll down as well, because the actual amendment to the original motion is at the end. It's an
Okay, no
additional
worries.
paragraph.
I'll ask the minute takers to attempt to display the entirety of the amended motion on the screen, please. Is that there now?
No,
Oh, okay.
there we go.
All good?
Simply an addition to ask local government New South Wales to actually acknowledge the work that the government and government library authorities and associations have done in relation to these challenging issues in the last couple of years. I don't think I can actually put the arguments for this motion any better than our two speakers did today.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Howard. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Okay, is there any amendment? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. I'll note that all three of the motions tabled for consideration at the Local Government New South Wales Conference have been passed. Item 24, Notice of Motion Inner West Labor Policy Platform. Councillor Howard.
Thank you. And councillors, I'm so pleased to move this motion here tonight. This motion represents the vision and purpose of Labor councillors, informed by the passion of grassroots Labor branch members, inspired by our engagement with and the feedback from local community members and organisations, and tested in the fiery blast furnace of a local government election. In a transparent way, we are presenting to the council and to the community the objectives and principles that will drive us in this term. We will be working to build the budget back to surplus whilst at the same time guaranteeing no rate increase above government indexation for the next 4 years. We'll be working to deliver modern facilities that foster civic pride, improve access to public services, including our pools, parks and libraries, and ensure that all residents in all corners of our council have access to the best public facilities on offer. We'll support local businesses and drive reforms to bolster local industry and improve economic prosperity. We will further embed our suburbs as the home and heart of arts and culture in New South Wales, introducing new festivals to showcase our town halls as artistic hubs, expanding the Perfect Match program to brighten and enliven our streets. We'll support our special entertainment precincts and ensure that our suburbs are where the state government's vibrary reforms hit their stride. We'll respond to the climate emergency, making permanent the energy efficiency service to support low-income households, including for renters, social housing tenants, and women and families escaping domestic and family violence. We'll plant microforests, ensure at least 1,000 new trees are planted each year, expand soft plastics recycling, increase the number of bins on local streets, establish new grants for organisations working in the circular economy, and continue to support residents as they transition to FOGO. We'll acknowledge the transformational role active transport will play in our communities into the future, significantly lifting investment to build new infrastructure for people who walk and ride. We'll finish the Greenway and will create a great Inner West Walk, a landmark active transport project that will attract visitors from across the city.
Chair, may I request an extension of time of 2 minutes?
Extension of time of 2 minutes is moved by Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor D'Arienzo. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Please proceed.
A landmark active transport project that will attract visitors from across the city and connect our suburbs through a mix of new and existing walking infrastructure. We'll revitalise our main streets, work to pedestrianise streets and enhance our laneways, reclaiming public space. We'll plan for growth in our suburbs and work with state and federal governments to build affordable and public housing. We will be the engine room for innovation when it comes to meeting the housing crisis, and we'll do that while improving local amenity and livability. And we'll work to deliver amendments to the DCP to encourage multi-generational and affordable housing. We'll expand council's engagement with our local community, ensuring we take the council direct to people. We'll also foster an Inner West community that is revered for its diversity, inclusiveness, and its resilience. We'll deliver the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Community Hub in Tempe, continue to develop survival memorials across the council. We'll make the Inner West Council a Gold Star employer for people with disability. We'll expand the number of people with disability working at council, deliver a neurodiversity strategy and an inclusive playground in every ward. We'll continue to support local businesses that are multicultural and community businesses, and continue to support and expand programs for our beautiful LGBTIQA+ community. Importantly, we'll expand the ways we serve and respond to older people in our community, bringing back seniors' morning teas and communicating better directly with people aged 55 and over. And councillors will improve the public services that local people rely on, keeping our libraries open for longer, strengthening our early childhood education centres, and improving street cleaning, street maintenance and garbage collections. This is an ambitious and bold agenda, and we'll be working day and night to deliver for the people of the Inner West.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for the motion?
I'm happy to
Seconded by
second the
Councillor
motion.
Scott. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, Councillor Howard has said everything perfectly.
That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it? Councillor Atkins, then Councillor Macri.
I would like to speak against the motion, thank you. While acknowledging that there are some good, even excellent things in the platform set out in the background to this motion, some of which we have already voted on or are voting on at other parts of the agenda, there are also some things that we do not support. The idea that we holus bolus adopt a party platform without considering the pros and cons of each item is not reflective of the way council works. Community consultation, costings, proper consideration before anything is included in the delivery plan and budget are essential. There are many things in this list that I would want more information on before voting to include in our plans, and I would want the maximum amount of public consultation. I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Macri.
Chair, I'd like to move an amendment, which I've given to the officers. That is that council officers seek feedback. It replaces point 3 with the council officers seek feedback from the community on Labor's policy objectives during the review of council's CSP, Community Strategic Plan, and provides advice to council on the financial implications of implementing any of the proposals. And what I'll just say, I think, as it's previously saying, I think there's some great things in here, some really good things. I'll be excited about doing a new library in Leichhardt, seeing the great success of Marrickville Library and moving towards those sorts of great objectives. But it's got to be not top down, us putting down on the community. That's what the community strategic plan is. It's got to be community up. It's got to be bottom up. They feed up what they want to us. And I support a lot of the things here, and it's great that the Labor Party has done so well in the election. I salute them for that. That's fantastic. But we still, every 4 years, we do a community strategic plan. It is updated. And that is the time when we bring new things in. It gives staff the ability to actually investigate and put forward plans how these things will come. And the community has their say on them. And if the community says they want them, then we go full steam ahead. If they say they don't want them, then we got a chance to sort of change direction for them. But it's about a community-led council rather than a top-down approach. That's why I can't support it in its form unless the amendment comes through. I'm happy either way.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Councillor Rosidi. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Councillor Howard, do you wish to incorporate the amendment?
I don't, with great respect, because I actually think that it's, again, respectfully redundant, and maybe I'll speak to what Councillor Atkins has raised as well. So what we're asking is that these items and these priorities be incorporated in the core documents of council. We know that as part of the review of those documents, that goes to thorough community consultation. Like these priorities will go to a formal consultation process. You know, all of us know that the council doesn't just adopt a CSP without a really lengthy and engaged process, and that's right. That should absolutely happen. So I don't incorporate it for that reason. I think that the intention is already there, that consultation will occur. I think also, just to respond to one of the points that Councillor Macri raised, is, you know, we agree with you, and we have not just pulled a lot of these priorities out of the air. This has been many, many years of work developing policy proposals with community organisations, with residents, based on resident feedback. You know, we are councillors that are of the community, and we've had a long, detailed engagement with the community and brought forward these proposals, not because they serve us, but because they serve the community. So I take your points and I understand it, but I don't incorporate it for those reasons.
Okay. Is there any further discussion of the amendment? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Of the Macri-Rosidi amendment. All those against? That has been defeated with only councillors Macri and Racidi in support. We'll go back to the primary motion. Is there any further amendment to the primary motion or anyone who wishes to speak against it? If not, I'll go to the Deputy Mayor for his right of reply.
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay, that's waived. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried, 8 votes to 7. Well, I can recommit the vote, or did I get that accurately? Okay, that's 8-7. We'll move on to item 25, notice of motion, cost of living support for inner west residents, no rate rises and bill smoothing. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The financial statements adopted earlier in this meeting and our long-term financial plan show the Inner West Council in a stable financial position. Since amalgamation, our finances have become healthier over time as we've paid off debt, bought new assets and invested in our infrastructure. We are moving towards a surplus. We are so stable, in fact, that we've been able to commit to no rate rises for 2 terms. Since amalgamation, comparable rate rises in neighbouring councils include 10% in Burwood, 11% in Canterbury Bankstown and Canada Bay, 13% in Georges River and North Sydney, 27% in Hunters Hill and 31% in Strathfield Council. There are advantages to being a bigger council, and one of those is that we can absorb the cost of the shock of the cost of living and inflation instead of passing it on. We will ease the cost of living by committing in the 3rd Inner West Council term to no rate rises above indexation. We'll also make additional efforts to promote the pensioner rebate and will introduce bill smoothing. Bill smoothing means that residents can pay their rates in small, even predictable amounts, even below the quarterly instalments. And these are the types of policy changes that a council can commit to when there is a stable, experienced leadership focused on delivering local solutions. What we know that we can do is help our community with their most pressing issue, and at the moment that is the cost of living. The Labor team is proud to have made this public commitment during the campaign, and I am proud to bring it to the floor on their behalf.
Thanks very much, Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder for that motion? I'm happy to second it. I'll waive my right to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the motion or to amend it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Item 27, notice of motion, fast and smooth development process, I believe is redundant because of the motion that has been passed previously on the same substantive issue. No disagreement on that. Which brings us to item 28, notice of motion extending the outdoor swimming season at Fanny Durack Aquatic Centre. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I am thrilled to bring this notice of motion as a fervent fan of Fanny Durack Aquatic Centre. I know that other wards have their fancy Leichhardt Aquatic Centre and their fancy Ashfield Aquatic Centre, and Dorney's is on the beautiful harbour. But for the people of Petersham and surrounds, Fanny Durack is the jewel in the crown, and it's co-located in our beautiful Petersham Park. It's got the fantastic Splash Cafe, which opened at the end of last year. It's near the Petersham Bolo, the preschool, the sports oval. It's absolutely the place to be, and anyone who's ventured down there, particularly on a Saturday and a Sunday, can see just how busy and thriving it is in that vicinity. Currently, the pool only operates from the 1st of October to the 31st of March during the warmer months. And I can tell you that there is a huge appetite in the community for the pool to be open longer. I acknowledge that in, I think, the term of council before last, council undertook a feasibility study to see if it was feasible to open the pool year round. And I acknowledge that that study that report found that the operational costs meant that that was not feasible. I also acknowledge that per a resolution of the last council, we are reinvestigating that possibility, and I don't seek to preempt the outcomes of that report, but I just don't think we need to wait for a report to look at options to extend the outdoor swimming season. I think we're all aware that the impacts of climate change have meant that we're increasingly seeing warmer weather for longer stretches throughout the year, starting in early autumn, starting earlier in the spring and increasing well into autumn. And many residents I know from speaking to, particularly during the campaign, would welcome a swimming season that extends from September through to April to reflect the changing weather patterns that we're experiencing. In this motion, I'm also proposing that council investigate the installation of an outdoor gym which again, I know anecdotally speaking with residents as well as local businesses, in particular the cafe. 30 seconds.
I'll move an extension of time of 1 minute, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, against, declare that carried.
Thank you, Chair. Anecdotally, I know from speaking to residents as well as the business that they are keen to look at opportunities to diversify the offerings in the area, along with the pool, the cafe and the playground. I think there's strong support for installing a free outdoor gym, particularly during the winter months where the pool is closed, to provide an additional offering for local residents to engage in physical exercise outdoors, to patronise the cafe and to enjoy everything that Petersham Park and surrounds has to offer. So I'm proud to move this motion. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Smith. That's seconded by Councillor Clay. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. You're in support. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the motion or to amend it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 31, Notice of Motion, Sydenham Road Strategy.
Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, the Metro City section has transformed how people are travelling around Sydney, and it's opened up Sydenham, Marrickville, St Peters and Tempe to entire new communities who are loving visiting us and enjoying our live music venues, our world-class cafes and restaurants, and our renowned microbreweries and distilleries. For inner Westies, they now have access to a fast, reliable public transport service into the CBD and over the bridge. And even more inner Westies will experience those benefits as the Metro extends to the southwest in the year ahead. More and more people are walking and riding to Sydenham Station. That's a great thing. And as councillors know, the north end of Marrickville, which I'm resisting calling NOMA, although we may need a motion on that, is experiencing significant increases in density, particularly along Victoria Road. The combination means that more and more people are walking along Sydenham Road to get to Sydenham Station, and the current arrangement along that stretch of Victoria Road to the station is just frankly a nightmare. The stretch is home to an eclectic collection of businesses, including microbreweries, gyms, community transport, factories and smash repairers, as well as the Marrickville Bowling Club and Wicks Park. It's a vibrant stretch, but a dangerous one, with cars parked on footpaths, trees that require maintenance, footpaths well past their prime, and dangerous intersections, including at Sydenham Road and Victoria Road, Sydenham and Fitzroy Street, and Sydenham and Buckley Street. This motion seeks to address these issues by taking a holistic look at how we address the problem. How do we upgrade this stretch to make it safe and fit for purpose, while also supporting local businesses and using the upgrade as a vehicle to transform the area and attract more people to the north end of Marrickville? So I want to host a roundtable of local businesses, public meetings for local residents about how we can get this right. I want to establish a project control group within council and to create a list of priority projects that we can consider as a council in the 24-25 budget process. And I want to focus some of the attention of the Inner West tourism strategy to the local businesses around Sydenham Station in light of the exciting new opportunities that the Metro is bringing.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, yes, Chair. I think it's important to note that that area has really been run down over a considerable amount of time, and I've walked up and down it a few times, and there's one thing that stands out, and there's one little factory that looks like a green oasis with these magnificent trees and gardens in the front. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be incredible if Sydenham Road looked like that? So impressed I was, I took a photo. I should probably share it with everyone. It's quite impressive because they're all meticulously maintained. Trees that are perfectly shaped round and hedges and everything. The big problem down there is parking and what we do. So that business has actually foregone its 2 parking spots in the front of their factory to actually, and I think they're the marble place, you know the one I'm talking about? So they've foregone their parking spots. So if we really want to be serious, we have to unlock the parking monkey down there. And we have to find out how we can get them to move their cars somewhere else. There is that large piece of land near Sydenham Station. Maybe we should write to Transport for New South Wales if they could give us some sort of parking in there. We can encourage the businesses to park their vehicles down there and then actually do something to transform those footpaths. Because that's the only reason they have that bit of land at the front just to park their cars, because it's so critical down there. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any amendment to the motion or anyone who's against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 32, notice of motion parking in Marrickville.
Thank you. So another issue that we've had with the opening of the metro has been that there are additional parking pressures for residents living in suburbs around Sydenham station. So for Tempe residents as well, who are seeing an uplift of people using the station, we know lots and lots of people are travelling into the station and parking around local streets. We understand why. They want to catch the public transport straight into the city. That is exacerbating some long-standing problems that Councillor Macri knows all too well with parking around this area. When I was door knocking and speaking with residents, it was raised time and time again that the current parking arrangements in the streets, particularly around the station, are just not fit for purpose, and it is stretching further and further into the suburbs. So people living right near Princes Highway having the same problem because people are parking that far away. Council needs to review this. We need to look at how we can have better parking controls to support residents there. And so this is what this is asking for, is for us to undertake a pretty whole-scale parking review and study of the suburbs surrounding the Sydenham station in particular and Tempe station. And I will just make a point too that whilst it's not included in the motion, it is also important that we really work together with other levels of government and as a council to encourage more people to ride and walk. That is absolutely critical and is a huge part of how we can alleviate those parking problems. But that substantively, we need to address the issue through a parking study.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I do, and I'd like to see if Councillor Howard would accept an additional point that I put forward, and that is that Council urgently, that Council right to Transport for New South Wales, making them aware of the impact the parking of the buses in Railway Parade is having on the businesses, and ask them to be relocated to the abundant empty lands around Sydenham Station, which is not utilised. Basically, businesses are really suffering because they've actually taken up all the parking, not all, but a good third of it, and it's impacting on the actual businesses. Workers can't park there. They're having issues with unloading. So Transport could look into that. We should let them know they're under pressure. Would you accept that, Councillor Howard?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, that's incorporated into the primary motion. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Item 34, sensory spaces for neurodivergent community members and their families. Councillor Carlisle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move this motion in an amended form and ask that minute takers that the amended version be displayed on the screen. Thank you. So sensory gardens are thoughtfully designed spaces that organise plants, objects and features in an intentional way to stimulate or calm the senses. Sensory gardens can stimulate the brain, develop language skills, improve social skills, improve coordination and fine gross motor skills, help with self-regulation, and ultimately they are fun. The amendment ensures certainty in funding for this initiative, but also allows for planning to ensure that they are appropriately funded for the development and the ongoing maintenance. Further, it can often be challenging for people with neurodiversity and their families and friends to interact and benefit from council services. Sensory spaces at events will create greater accessibility for many people who are neurodiverse, as well as their families or carers, many of whom may self-exclude from community consultations or events. This will ultimately support a greater engagement with residents of Inner West Council and a more representative and responsive council.
Very much for that, Councillor Carlisle. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Atkins.
Can I just speak very briefly to it, please? I really welcome this motion. I can tell you there are kids around who not only will benefit from this, but are actively wanting to help council build and plant these sorts of gardens in parks near them. So I think this is a great initiative. And just to note that at the last 3 council festivals and events that I have been to, there has been a sensory space and it has been well used and welcomed, and it's been great to chat to the people who were there about the sort of work that they do. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. There's no amendments. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 36 is also redundant because the substantive issue has been addressed through a previous resolution. So we'll go to item 37, Senior Services Communication. Councillor Clay.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'd like to speak to the motion and make an amendment. The purpose of this motion came out of my becoming aware of the directory when I was using some services for seniors, and I realised that it was only being made available through council sites. So this is broadening its distribution to the wider senior community, so they have a greater understanding of what services are available to them within the council, by the council, and from wider groups, for example, like Dementia Australia. So this will enhance their lives. I would also like to move an amendment to that motion, which has been submitted. It's an additional wording, so it now reads: the council send a written communication to all residents older than 55 years of age, informing them of local policies and programs for seniors by inclusion of the Inner West Seniors Directory brochure, to be funded by the existing communications budget.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clay. Is there a seconder for that motion? It's seconded by Councillor Macri. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 38, Notice of Motion, Community Engagement Council at your door. Councillor Clay.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the motion and move an amendment. As we're all aware, there are many avenues for the community to provide feedback to council, but this is a way of adding another layer, which was highlighted tonight during the discussion from the community members that attended and expressed their concerns about a survey. So this is another layer that allows them to provide feedback, and it's, as we all know, door knocking is a very effective way of meeting with the community. So the amendment is that council expand community consultation on major projects by door knocking residents to obtain direct feedback on their views regarding the proposed project, to be funded by the project's budget.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Yep.
Seconded by Councillor Atkins.
I have an amendment as well, which I provided to the minute takers.
Do you wish to speak to it?
Only briefly, just to say that I do think that we need to understand a bit more about how this would work and the costs of it, for which reason I'm suggesting we ask for a report by the December meeting.
Councillor Clay, are you willing to incorporate that amendment into the primary motion?
Yes, I am.
That's incorporated. Is there any further amendment? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 40, Notice of Motion, Mort Bay Park.
I would like to move an amended version of the motion, please, Chair.
Please do, Councillor Ferguson.
Yep, can we please have the minutes?
I'll ask the minute taker to display the wording of the amended motion on the screen.
Thank you very much. Just an explanation of the amendments. There were two items that were accidentally left out of the motion. One is that we would commence community consultation in 2024 of the priorities of the local residents for inclusion in the upgrade, and also receive a report to the February Ordinary Council meeting on the outcomes of the consultation and identifying which of the improvements can be undertaken immediately and which will need to be subject to a procurement process. Just to briefly speak to the motion, in the inner city where backyards are scarce, our green spaces are vital to health and the well-being of our community. It's where we exercise, unwind, socialise, play, celebrate, connect, walk our dogs, and much, much more. They have a huge significance to our local culture and lifestyle, and they're the heartbeat of our community. Mort Bay is a much-loved park, and due to its beautiful harborside position, size, and ferry wharf, it's a flagship park for the Balmain area. The park is a really great space
already, but with community consultation, we're looking to upgrade amenities and facilities so it can continue to fulfil the diverse needs of our residents while maintaining the beautiful natural environment of Mort Bay.
Thanks very much, Councillor Ferguson. I'm very happy to second the motion. Is there anyone who wishes to amend it or to oppose it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 42, notice of motion, investment in active transport across the Inner West. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. I would also like to move an amended version of this motion, please, Chair.
Please do. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, again, just briefly.
That's been displayed on the screen.
Thank you
Over
very
to
much. Thank you. I would just like to point out in the amendment that we have changed the terminology for doubling the total budget for cycleways to active transport, and that in item 3, that we continue to work with Inner West Transport community groups to identify, extend and deliver on key cycling corridors and pedestrian access. Just very quickly, Council active transport funding over the last term was invested in traffic facilities and implementing PAMP, the Pedestrian Access and Mobility Plan. Cycling was primarily funded by grants. Doubling the council investment will allow council to further invest in traffic facilities, PAMP and cycling. As we tackle housing supply and increase density across the Inner West, we need to also look at supporting our infrastructure and lifestyle. We're at a pivotal time with climate change and housing supply affordability issues. We need to reduce emissions and increase density. Active transport is key in both. Short, local trips to key destinations such as shops, public transport and schools are the focus here. We need to take a holistic approach to active transport by educating drivers and encouraging and supporting people that are able to consider riding or walking as a viable transport option. A great way is to start with our kids by supporting them to safely commute to school. To do this, we need infrastructure. Bit by bit, step by step, we grow, and this investment is part of the growth. This is an investment for the future generations. I think it's a worthy investment for the Inner West Council across this term.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Ferguson. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Scott. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, it's waived. Thank you.
Okay, that's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That concludes the items on the agenda of the open council meeting. There's a number of items that need to be dealt with in confidential session. Can I get a motion to move into confidential session? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Atkins. All those in favour? Against? Declare that. Okay, the broadcast has reconvened. Having concluded the business of the meeting, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much, everybody. Congratulations on your first meeting of the new Inner West Council.